Hello my friends, welcome back to another tutorial. I hope you're all keeping very well out there and looking forward to Christmas. Christmas is almost upon us. Happy times. I'm going to paint a beautiful snow scene for you today. I think this will be a nice refreshing scene for Christmas. Lovely blue colours, lots of trees, a little bit of reflection as well. So a nice cool snow scene, just a handful of colours, and we'll try and simplify it, make it enjoyable for you to try. I have a 16 by 12 canvas here, a few colours on my palette, and let's have a bit of fun with this one. A nice little snow scene. Very informative tutorial for reflections. If you're having difficulty with reflections in a still kind of a river in a snow scene, or just reflections in general, this should help, I think, answer a few of your questions. So let's have a bit of fun with this one. Let's get nice and Christmassy, a nice snow scene. Let's hope it turns out well. I'll be right back, don't go anywhere. So here we are, this is my canvas, 16 by 12. I did a very quick sketch, and there's the reference photograph. A lovely, beautiful, picturesque, snow, Christmassy kind of a picture. It looks complicated, but let's have a bit of fun, especially with these reflections there. For me, the centre point and the focal point will be around the centre of the reflections here, where you have all these reflections of the trees. So let's make this as nice as we can. A very simple sketch, just a couple of lines, a couple of indications of the riverbank, that's all. And I'll tell you what colours I'm using today. Titanium white, Naples yellow, a touch of cadmium yellow, phthalo blue, magenta, burnt umber and black. I think that's all we need. That's more than enough, and we can mix lots and lots of different shades out of just those few colours. Alright, I have a little bit of turpentine with thinners. Turpentine with a little bit of linseed oil, which is what I like to use. My canvas is primed once, ready to go, and let's just start painting and get some enjoyment out of this lovely snow scene. I'm going to start with the top sky. Now up at the sky. Let's dampen our brushes ever so slightly. You can oil this if you like, but I'm not going to. It's only a small area. It should be fine. I'll take a touch of phthalo blue and a bit of white. Now, I get a lot of questions about phthalo blue. A lot of people, the more common, we say, colours you could use would be French ultramarine, cobalt blue. I did use those for a long time. In fact, I even have a tube of French ultramarine right here. I just find this very warm. There's something about the French ultramarine. For me, phthalo blue is just a much more natural blue. It's a more natural kind of a sky blue. I just prefer it. I don't know why, it's just a personal preference. So it's up to yourselves. If you want to use French ultramarine or cobalt, you can, absolutely. But I just think this is a lovely blue. It's a very soft, earthy kind of a blue. I need to put more white into this. It's very dark. And it's a very rich colour as well. So a little goes a long way. That's what I notice about phthalo blue. And that's another reason why I like it, because you only need the tiniest little amount to really go far. Let's just pop this blue sky in just a little bit on top, and from there on I'm just going to clean my brush now, take that blue out as much as I can, and I'm going to just add some white on its own, which is going to mix anyway. You see, there's still some blue in my brush. Put some white on its own the rest of the way, so we end up with a very light blue. Now we don't want it just pure white. A little bit of a blue is nice. Let's soften that across with our brushes, and okay, I'd say we're pretty much there. Nice simple sky, nothing dramatic. Job done. Okay, down onto these trees. I get a lot of questions as well about painting trees. A lot of people find them quite difficult. It's about simplifying the process in your mind. I find a lot of beginners and amateurs, they kind of overcomplicate trees. Let's just make it simple. Now I know along the top of this is very bright white, isn't it? So I'm just going to clean my brush very well on some clean tissue. Let's try and get the brush as clean as we can. I'm going to use this brush again, because I like using this brush. It's almost 90% clean. Let's take a touch of Naples yellow, touch of cadmium, and then lots of white. Doesn't matter if there's a little bit of blue in there, it'll be fine. But lots of Naples, okay? Let's just go up, nice thick paint, and put some light on these trees. Now again, I don't want to go in a kind of a greeny colour, so just be careful with that, okay? Lots of Naples yellow, just the tiniest touch of cadmium. You might not even need cadmium because it'll be that bright. Let's just suggest a row, not a row, let's just suggest a very kind of a white top on some trees way off there in the distance. And I just put the Naples yellow in there just to give it a little bit of light, little touch of light catching the trees. I'm going to go right up here and just dab my brush right up into the sky and almost leaving it disappear really. And you may notice if you're doing this, if there's any bit of yellow mixing with the blue, you might get a greeny shade going on. If you're worried about that, just use white on its own. In fact, look, I'm just going to use white as well on its own. I'm just going to dab my brush very randomly and softening that off into the sky, just here and there. And then I'm going to come over, right across the canvas over here. So I'm just suggesting the snow on the trees going off across the landscape, disappearing up into the sky as well, even slightly, okay? Now as we come down, I'm going to start adding some warmer colours. I know you can barely see that now on the canvas, but I'm going to start adding some warmer shades. I'll go into this blue that we had for the sky, a touch of magenta. Okay, so you'll see how pink that is now. It's quite pink, isn't it? Then I'm going to take a hint of Naples yellow. That will just tone down the pinky shade just a little. So we have what's kind of a warm, soft, pinky shade. I'm going to come right down here. I'm going to just kind of soften this up now into the white up there. And this is just the first layer. I'll be cooling this down then with some cool shades afterwards. But I'm focused on getting the kind of the shadowed areas developed. That's all it is. And I want to put an extra bit of pink into this on purpose. I like a pinky shade in a snow scene. Even though there's not very much on the photograph, I do like it in a snow scene. There's something about a pinky shade in snow. It's just so inviting, I find. So I'm just going to add that little bit up here. Wherever you think there's a kind of a shadow on a tree, let's just pop a little bit of that colour here and there, just randomly, look. Now, so we have a nice little bit of a pinky colour going on. Let's start going into some cool shades. Let's take some phthalo blue. Again, a little bit too much. Some magenta. That's a nice cool shade, but I want it a little bit more on the softer side. I don't want it a very rich colour, so I'm going to just take a touch of black into that. Tiniest touch, and that just tones down the richness of the colour. Okay, let's try it. That's not bad. I'm going to start putting in the suggestion of some of the shaded areas of the foliage. Just a little hint, and as it comes down, it gets more prominent down towards the end. So everything always gets darker as it comes down towards the ground. Typically when painting scenes like this, or in landscape painting in general, in forests and that kind of thing, everything tends to get darker as it comes down towards the ground. So now I have already a nice little shade painted onto that. I'm going to go up and start adding a little dab of that just here and there on the outer edges as well. It's only just to give it some shade. And as it comes down, you see this kind of massive rich colour we have here. I'm going to put that in then with the really deep shade. Just like that. Look, we come right down and then we just literally fill the area. Take a touch more blue, a touch more pink. And we just fill this area with that nice deep shade colour. That's looking quite nice. That wasn't so far, but getting there. I'm now going to just add a touch of black and a little magenta. because I do want to just make it that little bit darker down towards the bottom. In other words, doing this, it just helps the trees kind of anchor down onto the ground. I find that a lot with painting. Finding some way of anchoring your landscape to the ground beneath it is very important, because you don't want it to look like it's sort of floating in midair or anything like that. It gives it that lovely anchor, you see what I mean? It just kind of pulls it down and it sits it on the floor. Now, I will take just a touch of phthalo blue, and look, I'm just going to tap a little bit of phthalo blue in there again, just to cool this down ever slightly. Just make it a little bit of the cooler side just again. So you can change things as you go along, you see what I mean? That just cooled it slightly. And I might just add a bit of that just around here as well, for that tree that's very prominent. And maybe a bit around there. Now, I don't think we need to go any further with that. What I might do is, while I have this colour, I might take a little bit of white, and I might just use that colour, as I have it on my brush, I might as well. I'm just going to use that to paint the kind of shadowed areas of the snow here. Just a little bit here and there. And soften it into the trees. You see, you can dab and you can do all that sort of technique just to soften them in together. I'm going to use a bit of that over here as well. There's a block of trees here, so I'm not too concerned about this area. But you see the likes of just here along the river. We could just pop a little bit in. I find it's a good idea to do this while you have the colour on your brush, and it's the colour you're going to need anyway. It's a good idea just to do this, I think, just to get it just to get it on. You know, use up the paint you have on your palette. It saves you having to mix a lot more later on, mixing more colours. It really does. Now, so we have a lot of that blanked in already. And I think we're looking quite nice. The next thing I'm going to do is paint in some branches and tree trunks. Just a few of them. I'm going to start with my very, very pointy brush. Now, I need to fix the white balance on my camera. So I have a pointy brush. I'm going to take some burnt umber, lots of thinners, and this is what they call a rigger brush. I purchased it just recently and I wanted to try and see what it's like. It's actually fantastic. So if you're in the, if you're looking for a nice brush for painting fine lines, definitely go for a rigger brush, but just add plenty of turpentine into it when you're mixing, okay? Let's add a few tiny little suggestions of little tree trunks off in the distance, and it's literally just kind of flicking the brush upwards here and there. They're kind of poking through then here and there in the trees. You see what I mean? It's just a suggestion of one or two. I don't need to put anything over here just yet. Maybe put one through here, like so. Then I go back to my large brush again, and I'm going to start putting some snow on the trees. And this is where the trees will start to come to life, where you will start to see the actual physical form of the trees. All right. So I need to get a lot of white on my palette. Titanium white. Let's just pop a nice bit on there. And what I'll do is just grab my large brush. It's nice and clean and it's very dry. I'm going to take some white. Load up that brush with some white, look. Let's start on this side. Let's just go, let's just start randomly here, look. And put some white over those tree trunks and those little twigs and branches. As it comes up, it gets a lot more denser and thicker. You see? Clean your brush every now and then, just to keep the colour fresh. Let's put a nice thick one over here as well. Again, using the corner of the brush only. And that is probably all right so far. I'm going to suggest a little bit of a bush just around here. Maybe off in the distance, I might just lighten it then slightly here and there as well. You see what I mean? Just kind of swishing the brush through it here and there. Let's go to the other side. This one is a deep kind of a shade, so I'm going to put just along the edge here, that white. I'm then going to go to this side and just start, let me just hold the canvas back now for a moment. Just going to start dabbing along that side, like so. Clean the brush again, go back into some white. Let's start picking out some nice crisp white areas on this. And again, just remember, keep cleaning your brush in between this when you're doing this, okay? And you see how I'm going at an angle. So the trees are kind of falling inwards. That's the weight of the foliage on the trees. We're just trying to suggest the weight of the foliage on the trees, and it's kind of dragging them downwards. Now, that's okay. I'm happy enough with that. I'm going to use the remainder of this white on my brush just to kind of fill in the lighter areas of the snow. As I'm here, I might as well. Let's just cover the canvas really. And we'll worry about all that later on. Okay, there we go. We're slowly getting there. Right, now, one thing about the composition of a painting is you want to kind of tie it together. So I can see there's a significant difference between the shades from the bottom of the canvas to the top. Okay, there's a lot of pink going on here and a lot of blue going on down here. So you can either do it two ways. You can add some pink into this side down here, or you can add some blue to the top ones. It's completely up to yourself. But you see, by just putting that little touch of a pinky shade here and there, it just ties everything together, doesn't it? Now let's start putting in some of the thicker tree trunks here and there. I'm just going to go right into some black, okay, with my very thin pointy brush. Lots of thinners, maybe a hint of burnt umber too, look, why not? And I'm going to start putting in these tree trunks all the way along here. Let's just bring them up and let them disappear out. Depending on how thick the trunks are, you may need to go to a slightly thicker brush as well. It's up to yourself. You can put lovely thick ones in, or just a few dainty little thin ones like this. I will probably just do a mixture anyway. So, more black. And I'm going to go up out of the trees, just suggesting. I'm going to go like this. Maybe there's one falling over at an angle. Don't worry about the bases. I'm going to be covering a lot of the base of the tree trunks as well. Let's get a bit more of a richer black going here now. A nice clump of tree trunks just down here. And you know, just keep all of this fun. Keep it loose, keep it fun. That's what it's all about. We're not here to be stressed out, are we, my friends? We're here to have some fun and paint a nice little scene and learn a thing or two as we go along. That's the only reason we're all here, me included. I learn from every painting I do. I learn something new, a new little trick or a new little technique, and that's what makes it fun and interesting for me. So let's just keep it all nice and loose, okay? No need to go to any trouble worrying too much. Let's put another one here. I think we're pretty much, you know, we're almost done. There's no reason for us to kind of go over the top with all of this. Let's just keep it simple. Okay? Now, I do want to accentuate one or two of the thicker ones by the reflection, because these ones are going to be copied down here. So I do want to make them nice and thick and black. There we go. That will do. Let's put some snow over these guys. A little bit of snow, yes. I'm going to just get some white. I may take a touch of blue. A tiny touch of blue, so it's a very, very whitey blue. And I'm going to just sort of dab that colour over my trees. And let's come down here and add a little bit, just sort of cover the trees ever so slightly. And go right up here out of the painting. It's very important to keep your brush nice and clean doing this. Very important. Let's sit them down in the snow. Let's just go along and dab. In fact, I am going to, in just a moment, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. And we'll try some techniques with a smaller brush as well. Yeah? They might need to be a little bit kind of thicker and stronger, but for now, it's okay. I'm going to go to a small brush, a nice little flat pointy brush, look. That'll give us some nice lights and darks. Let's start putting some lights in here. I'm going to go with some white, little touch of Naples yellow, tiny touch of magenta. And I'm going to start just suggesting some light hitting the snow here and there. Now we'll put plenty of magenta into this, because if you have just a yellowy colour, it's going to mix with the blue again immediately, isn't it? So that little bit of pink with the Naples yellow, it makes so much of a difference. It really does. And we just want to kind of catch the sunlight as it hits the ground. You see that? Look, just over there, for example, a little bit of sunlight coming across and hitting the snowy banks. And we can put a bit down here like this. We can lighten all of this then. Soften that, back in. We could use a little bit of blue. Come over here with a little bit of blue for that shade. Now, I'm going to bring this riverbank back a bit, okay? I'm going to kind of go around in here and back out then. So I need to just remove that tiny, tiny, tiny bit of riverbank that we have. Using a little bit of my thinners, just a little bit of clean thinners. Just going to scrape that away. There. Okay, that's better. I carry on down here putting in some nice light shades. So, clean my brush again. Get some of that white, little hint of Naples yellow, tiny touch of magenta again. And that nice kind of bright sunlit colour now, we'll just pop it on here and there. You can see that's just giving a nice indication of the sun hitting this bank. And we're going to need to darken some of the darks on this because they are quite dark. That will just help the bright shades stand out even more. And you'll see what I mean now in just a moment. So I'm going to mix some dark, alright? Let's take some blue, some magenta, and a little touch of burnt umber. And then we need a little bit of white in that. Now we need this nice and dark and rich, but not too dark. I don't want to overpower the painting again with too much dark. Let's just take that colour, and you see along the riverbank it has that kind of nice dark shade going on, doesn't it? I'm going to go in like that, then it disappears, okay? Then we come back down here, and it gets quite strong again, doesn't it? I might go darker again. A little bit more blue, a little bit of pink, little touch of burnt umber, just to tone it down. And we can go in here with these dark ones, turn the bank around, and then just darken all of this bank down. Darken it right down. A lot of this is trial and error. You're trying something. That's what I do. I just literally try something. If I feel it's not working, I'll stop and I'll try something else. But yes, it's just a lot of trial and error. I'm going to go up with some of these darks, kind of go up like that and turn them across. This is all kind of light down here, isn't it? Some of these I'm going to bring up as well, just to suggest the bank is turning. Okay, it's kind of coming up and turning. So now it's starting to kind of take a little bit of shape, isn't it? Albeit a little slowly, but it is starting to take shape. I'm just going to pop this in like this, and then I'm going to pop a few lights in on these ones down here. Let's just take a bit of white. Let's try a bit of white. And we'll just suggest a little bit of light catching some of these. Again, let's just do it sort of very light-heartedly. I'm not trying to, again, I'm not trying to get photograph sort of quality with all of this painting. It's just literally a nice little impression of the scene that we have. Now I'll come over here. I really want to capture the feeling of the sunlight hitting that corner over there. So, Naples yellow, again, a little magenta, plenty of white, but I'd say probably more Naples yellow this time. Let's see if we can just sort of try and capture the light hitting the bank over here. Another good way of doing this would be with the palette knife, which again, I may try. Let's get a palette knife and try this. Let's grab some white, touch of Naples yellow. Now that's not too bad, is it? And maybe a little dab of it here and there as it goes off. You see how versatile the palette knife is. You can just do so much with the palette knife, can't you? It really is a joy to use. It really, really is. You can just do so much. So we have a nice shadowed area. I might lighten it just slightly. It maybe is a little bit on the dark side. And if I grab more titanium white, we can add a little bit of texture on this side also. Again, let's take a touch of Naples yellow. And let's just pop a little hint of that here and there. I think that's a bit better now. It's kind of catching the sunlight a little bit better. And let's just add a little bit down here and there. I think that's a bit better. I'm going to move on to the reflections. First of all, I'm going to just add a hint of detail along the riverbank because it needs, I think, that bit of detail just to sit everything down. I'm going to take a little bit of black, all right? Tiny bit of black. And let's just add a hint of suggestion there of the darkness in the riverbank. All right, just a hint here and there. It's really, if anything else, just to kind of help the riverbank sit down just where it meets the water. Again, it sort of anchors it down, doesn't it? I'm not going to do too much. The next thing I want to do is start reflections. And that was the whole point of this video to begin with, I find. For me, it was just about reflections. So I'm going to reload my turpentine, just add a drop in there. Let's start putting in soft reflections. Now for this, I am going to use a touch of linseed oil. Look, the only reason is just to help the colours kind of soften together that little bit easier. And to keep them wet for longer as well. That's the only reason, okay? A tiny, tiny, tiny touch is all we need. Let's start putting some colours on this. This is where you may get flustered and frustrated. This is where you might get, you know, annoyed. I'm going to start with some of the lighter shades in the painting, and just in the middle, around here, look, we have a nice kind of a light, don't we? We have a nice light shade. It moves down then to more of a blue, down around here, doesn't it? And it's actually quite a rich blue. And another thing to bear in mind is that when you're painting reflections, the reflection is generally darker than what you are reflecting. So if I'm reflecting a light blue sky, it's going to be slightly darker and richer down towards the bottom here, okay, in the water. Because you're looking through the depth of the water as well at the same time, so it just makes everything seem a lot darker. Let's take a bit of white and pop a little bit of white into that. Okay, just going to flick it up and down like so. Then I'll clean my brush. I'm going to start putting in these darker shades. So now we go into more of the pinks. A little bit of blue, a little bit of magenta, and again plenty of white. Don't be shy with your white because that gives you a nice thick colour to work with. Let's start with this first and take a look. Maybe a touch of burnt umber. Again, just to tone it down. And this is very important when you're painting reflections. Always bring your brush up and down. Never go side to side like this, okay? Because the reflections have a natural way that they fall on the water, and they generally fall like this. They're kind of stretched out on the water surface. So always bring your brush up and down like this. You could drag it from the bottom up and you can drag it from the top down. And then we just start lightening a little bit as we go upwards. I'm just literally looking at the photograph, and where I see a light shade, I'll put in a light shade. Where I see a soft shade, I'll put in a soft shade. That's what I'm doing. I'm just looking at the colours. But don't forget, if you make a mistake with oils, it's very easy to just go back and fix it. That's the benefit of working with oils. As I'm sure you know, I'm going to start adding a deep kind of a colour down on the bottom side here. Again, just to accentuate the darks in the reflection. And let that just disappear off like so. I might take a bit of black and a bit of pink, and just, or even a bit of blue as well actually. A little bit of blue and a bit of pink, just down around here, where it gets, you see that nice rich dark shade? So now you can begin to see the reflection coming to life, can't you? I'm going to come over here with that dark shade, and I'm going to pop a little bit of that in just on this side. it's a good idea, as we have the colour on the brush, it's a good idea just to use it. So why not? And then we'll bring that up and over to this side, like this. Again, brush strokes up and down, or down and up, whichever suits you best. Take a bit of pink, maybe a bit of blue, get a nice deep shade here and there. And I'm just going to cut into the riverside there, just kind of cut into it. And then as we get up, you can see it's a bit more of a lighter shade again, and we'll bring that off up into the distance. So we have, I think, a fairly nice reflection going on here. I think it's fairly good. I'm going to just clean my brush a little bit and take a very whitey blue, and I just want to add a little bit of a light again, just in down along here. Maybe just bring it down a bit. And once that's done, I'm going to take a very soft blender brush and I'm going to drag all of those down, softening everything together very gently. Bring them straight down in a vertical brush stroke, okay? And you can go up from the back, from the bottom up, you can flick it upwards. And that's our reflections done, except the trees. Let's get a small little detail brush. It's not very small. Get a little bit of black. And let's try and replicate what we have here. So I can see this one. If you bring that straight down, it starts around here, doesn't it? And then it goes like this, and it turns, and it goes off. Then we have another one next to it, which kind of wiggles like that. And simply just try and recreate these as best you can. You don't have to be absolutely perfect with these. Just a very kind of a loose suggestion, that's all. And let's just say we have another one in here somewhere, look, like that. Now we go to the other side. Over here, you see how this is falling at a slight angle? So let's come down, let's start around here, and let's just go at an angle like this, and just leave it disappear off. Same with the one next to it here. And we've one more, like that, okay? Now, very simply, when we're done with that, let's just again bring these just down very gently, rubbing gently over the surface of these brush strokes, okay? You see, that's softening them back in to the paint underneath. And when you finish that, the final step for me is simply very gently bring the corner of your soft brush just over these, making them and giving a little bit of a wiggle, okay? And that just really softens the reflections back in for you. So I'm very happy with this now so far. It's turned out much nicer than I thought it was going to turn out, I'll be honest. All we have to do now is come back down here and kind of tidy up along the riverbank. I'll try some white, a little bit of blue, and we kind of just cut into the trees just to make that a nice solid riverbank once again. We go over here like this. And I think we are doing quite well with this. I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow down here. Now, I don't see a shadow in the photograph, but I think just a little bit would be nice. I think it would make it sit a little better. And then I might just give that a little bit of detail again with a small detail brush. There is little bits of this and that in here anyway, isn't there? Try a bit of burnt umber on its own, just to suggest little things. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be recognizable. It could just be little bits of, little bits of twigs, branches, all that kind of thing. It doesn't have to suggest anything in particular. I'm just literally wiggling the brush here and there just to create the impression of small little items of detail. That's simply all I'm doing. Okay, so we could go up here, maybe put a few bits out in the water. Let's give the water a little bit of shimmer or a bit of movement up around this area. Just a little bit of white on our small detail brush, and we'll just drag it out here and there, look. That's all we're trying to do, just a little suggestion. Maybe there's bits of snow coming out onto the water's edge there, look. Little bits. Now, I'm also going to just go along here, like that. Again, just kind of face off some of those. After this, it's up to ourselves, really, whatever we wish to do. I need to put more snow on these ones over here as well, but look, I'm just going to add a little bit of highlight, or a bit of snow, etc., just on some of these. And I'm going to get a fan brush. Let's try a fan brush, my friends. Take a bit of white. And let's just try add a little bit of snow on these. I'm going to come over here and just maybe add a slight texture to some of this. Again, it just sits it down really, doesn't it? And it just helps it all fade in together, creating that kind of soft snow scene feeling that you want. And I don't know if there's any more we need to do in this scene. I might just add a little bit of light again, just around here on some of these little mounds as they turn and come down. But I am just simplifying it. I'm not kind of, I'm not going into loads of detail. I really don't want to kind of worry about creating lots of detail in this painting. It's really just an example to show you how you can simplify something while having a bit of fun. And how's that, my friends? I'm fairly happy with that. I think it turned out quite nice, I'll be honest. I was a little bit apprehensive at the beginning, but I do think it has turned out quite nice. So with that, I am going to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope I've increased your enjoyment of snow scenes and help you not worry too much about painting a snow scene in general. Let me move the camera back here a little bit for you. And I hope I've shown you that you can just create a nice, soft, simple scene using quite basic techniques. You don't have to be, a real expert in techniques just to create a nice little snow scene. That's a beautiful scene. And it's all about, for me, the reflections. These reflections, I think they just catch the eye. And it just brings the whole painting together. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me paint this for you this week. It's Christmas. Christmas is coming up, and a couple of snow scenes here and there I think are nice. I might do something nice as well next week. I'm thinking maybe like a Christmassy log cabin in the woods at night time or something, with kind of bright lights coming from the windows. I think that would be a lovely effect as well, so I might try that next week. Stay tuned, give me a like, do subscribe, and let's push the channel out to more and more people, because there's so many people not finding the channel, and the more you like the videos and the more you subscribe, the more it gets pushed to more and more people. That gives more people access to little hints and tips, and you know, so many people I find are missing out on nice, simple, basic tutorials which are kind of easy to follow, so to speak. So do give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week. Happy painting, and God bless. Take care.